Face it, folks, there will never be another entertainer like Beyoncé Giselle Knowles Carter ever again. On Sunday, February 11, 2024, the night of this year's NFL Super Bowl, Beyoncé made an announcement that would shock the world. She announced that she was dropping what we now know is called Cowboy Carter, the sequel to her 2022 album Renaissance. She released 2 songs that served as precursors for what the theme or soundscape of the album that we're going to hear. Now, with an album title like Cowboy Carter, I think it's pretty safe to assume what we're in for, but that's neither here nor there. So with the buzz around Queen Bee's upcoming release, see what I did there? I have 2 questions I would like to ask. How and when did Beyoncé become this force that we all know her to be? And is Beyoncé the greatest entertainer to have ever lived? Well, let's get into the loop, folks. In her hometown of Houston, Texas, Beyoncé's musical journey started at the age of 5 when she first saw Michael Jackson in concert. From there, she sang in her church choir, she beat out teenagers in singing competitions at age 7, and she attended an art school for music. In the early 90s, she was in a group called Girls Time with Latavia Robertson, whom she met at an audition, Kelly Rowland, who was living with Beyoncé and her family at the time, and 3 other respectfully unnamed girls. As they were recording songs, performing all around Houston and generating a national buzz, in 1993 they were given the opportunity to perform in the nationally televised talent competition show Star Search, which, for younger viewers, it was essentially like America's Got Talent or X Factor in the 80s and 90s. Girls Time did in fact lose, but Star Search has a long list of celebrities and stars who have been on the show, lost, and went on to be hugely successful afterwards. Justin Timberlake lost on Star Search, Britney Spears lost on Star Search, Christina Aguilera lost on Star Search, Aaliyah, Alanis Morissette, Tori Kelly, Dave Chappelle, who funny enough lost the same night that Girls Time and Justin Timberlake lost. I mean, who were the judges of that night? Girls Time's loss on Star Search motivated Beyoncé's father, Matthew Knowles, to throw himself into managing the group full time. Manage as well as train them, because you see, Matthew's methods of molding Beyoncé into the superstar that she would become, they've been known to be unorthodox, to say the least. Things like having the girls sing while on a treadmill so that their voices don't falter and they would have the endurance to sing as well as dance. Or, as he admitted, having the girls practice how to perform under unpredictable circumstances so that they'll know how to adapt to any situation on stage. Whatever the methods, he saw to it that Girls Time was sharp and ready so that they can make it into the business. After the removal of 3 respectfully unnamed girls and the addition of LaToya Luckett, the group would continue grinding it out by performing at salons, local gigs, as well as opening up for established R&B groups like SWV, Dru Hill, and Immature. After being dropped by Elektra Records after a few months of just being signed with them, they signed with Columbia Records in 1996 under a new name, Destiny's Child. In 1998, their self-titled debut was released, which featured their first hit, No No No. No 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 peaked at number 1 on the Billboard R&B and Hip Hop chart, number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, and went certified platinum. The album itself peaked at number 67 on the Billboard 200 and number 14 on the Billboard R&B and Hip Hop chart. Moderately successful, but not quite the splash that their next album would make. The Writing's on the Wall, an album which, in my opinion, spawned some of the greatest hits the group has ever made, peaked at number 5 on the Billboard 200, number 2 on Billboard R&B and Hip Hop chart, went 8 times platinum, and resulted in them winning their first 2 Grammys. As their popularity and stardom began to rise, so did tension, specifically between 2 of the members, Latavia and LaToya, and Matthew Knowles. The tension resulted in them leaving the group and being replaced by Michelle Williams and Farrah Franklin, whose time with the group was very brief. So if you're keeping track, the group has in total 9 members. Anyway, so the tension that led to the group shakeup. Half of it had to do with LaToya and Latavia feeling as though they were being sidelined in favor of Kelly and Beyoncé. Now, riddle me this. As somebody growing up during that time, there was something that seemed very apparent, eh? Didn't it seem like Beyoncé was the face and the voice of the group? Compare and contrast to other girl groups from the 1990s. Who was the lead singer of Spice Girls? Who was the lead singer of TLC? Who was the lead singer of En Vogue? That's a trick question because there were none in their cases. But with Destiny's Child, at least in the Quadrant era, it appeared that Beyoncé was the primary focus, with Kelly playing a secondary role. It doesn't help that Kelly was practically raised by Matthew and Miss Tina Lawson Knowles, which helps to justify LaToya and Latavia's claims. All of that is water under the bridge now, and the core 5 members are all in harmony. In any event, with the group whittling down to a trio, they were featured on the Charlie's Angels soundtrack in 2000 with another smash hit, Independent Woman Part 1. Then in 2001, they released their 3rd album, Survivor, which went on to be just as successful as the last album. Peaking at number 1 on the Billboard 200 and R&B hip hop charts, went 4 times platinum, and resulted in a Grammy win. They also released the Christmas album that same year because that seemed to be a music industry formula. Also that same year, Beyoncé starred in the MTV TV movie Carmen the Hip Opera, one of the first times that Beyoncé would be seen outside of the group. In 2002, Beyoncé starred in the third installment of the Austin Powers trilogy as Foxy Cleopatra in Austin Powers and Goldmember. So, of course she had to bless the soundtrack with a song, right? A little ditty called Work It Out, which to my knowledge didn't chart on the Billboard Hot 100. But it's a pretty dope song anyways. I mean, roll the clip, James. You really thought I was gonna be responsible for much of getting a copyright strike? But I digress. So with Work It Out serving as her debut solo single and not charting well, I could see this as her motivation to lean further into a solo career. Well, perhaps that and seeing her friend and groupmate Kelly Rowland release the generation-defining song Dilemma, which earned her a Grammy. So, lean further into a solo career she did, as in 2003, she released her debut album Dangerously in Love, which spawned one of the craziest hits of any generation. Crazy in Love. The song was Crazy in Love. I hope you got what I was trying to put down. As well as other hits like Baby Boy and Naughty Girl, a song in which, if I had a time machine, I would find a way to get Naughty Girl to Kelly Rowland because reasons. Dangerously in Love peaked at #1 on Billboard, went 11 times platinum, and resulted in 5 Grammy wins. At this point, she established that it was me, myself, and I, until she linked back up with Kelly and Michelle for a final Destiny's Child album. But then after that, Beyoncé went on the craziest solo run that our generation would ever see. 2006, B-Day, my favorite Beyoncé album, #1 on Billboard, 5 times platinum, and a Grammy win. 2008, I Am Sasha Fierce, #1 in Billboard, 6 times platinum, and 5 Grammy wins. 2011, 4, #1 on Billboard, 5 times platinum, and a Grammy win. 2013, Self-Titled, the album that shook the landscape of music as far as album releases go, #1 on Billboard, 5 times platinum, and 3 Grammy wins. 2016, Lemonade, #1 on Billboard, 3 times platinum, and 2 Grammy wins. 2022, Renaissance, #1 on Billboard, platinum, and 4 Grammy wins. Of her 86 songs that have entered the Billboard, as a solo artist, she has 17 top 10s. Currently, as it stands, she is the most awarded artist in Grammy history with 32 Grammy wins. Let's not get into her movie career because reasons. This type of consistency and dominance since her debut has not been matched by any one of her contemporaries in the 21 years that she's been solo. So, what's the secret of her success? If I may be so bold to make a sports comparison, which is something that you'll find is a common theme with me, Beyoncé is like a mixture of LeBron James and the late Kobe Bryant. LeBron James is currently in his 21st year in the NBA and continues to dominate and play basketball at a high level. He continues to maintain his status at the top of the mountain in basketball as he's setting and breaking records. During the time he was playing, and especially at his peak, Kobe Bryant was the best basketball player on the planet and one of the fiercest competitors. A lot of that had to do with his work ethic, his strive, and determination to be recognized as such. He called it Mamba mentality. Where this relates to Beyoncé is simple. In the 21 years that she's been a solo artist, she has been consistent in maintaining the light of her superstardom as she continues to set and break records and barriers. But that consistency, the longevity in her career, does not exist without her insane work ethic. This work ethic was instilled in her from a young age, and she has carried it with her through the Destiny's Child days, the early days of her solo career, and even now. An example of Beyoncé's work ethic was apparent in her 2019 concert film Homecoming, where she whipped herself back into performance shape for her 2018 Coachella performance 10 months after having delivered twins. This is the kind of work ethic that keeps somebody at the forefront of entertainment and pop culture for 2 decades. This is what separates her from many of her contemporaries before and after. On YouTube, there was a series called The Legends Panel by creator ITHL123. The series started off as a parody of reality TV show reunions like Bad Girls Club before it developed a storyline surrounding Beyoncé's legendary status. The storyline involved Beyoncé constantly having to appear before the likes of Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Madonna, Prince, Whitney Houston, and Mariah Carey to be deemed a legend by their standards. Though it was a parody, it did echo the sentiments of the creator, the viewers, as well as many folks around that time. I highly recommend everyone check it out because as funny as it is, it's also quite insightful. I bring that up as just an example of how despite Beyoncé's success, there seems to be a word that floats around her name for years. The word overrated. A notion that she is quite aware of, hence why she referenced it on Heated off the Renaissance album. And I'm not gonna lie to you, during the time of her self-titled release, I was a part of the Beyoncé's Overrated brigade years after being in love with her. It wasn't anything against her talent, I just didn't think that her music was hitting on anything deeper as she was being compared to the likes of Michael and Janet Jackson, who have hit on deeper themes in their music. I didn't feel like she was the caliber of artist as someone like a Prince or a Stevie Wonder. However, Lemonade changed my perspective and allowed me to see Beyoncé as the artist that she worked incredibly hard at being. An artist that deep down I knew she had the potential of being, one that other artists would admire her for. Homecoming and The Gift, Black is King deepened my appreciation for her artistry, and seeing her perform live last year made me want to give anybody a wedgie who calls her overrated. It's become evident that she's mastered the art of using her art and her platform to say things without actually having to say them. Case in point, with her previous album being a house music album and her upcoming release being a country album for all intents and purposes. As I said in my house music video, which you guys should definitely check out, it's very insightful, she was reclaiming the genre of house music, a genre that has Afrocentric roots. I must have been an oracle, because a little while after shooting that, she announced that she was dropping a new album and she released 2 songs that would be an indicator for what we'd be in for. Evidently, there's an overarching theme in these releases of reclaiming genres that are rooted in Black culture. In this case, country.
Renaissance means rebirth, right? Beyoncé is literally going back and making music in the genres that Black people have been basically like huge influences in.
Yes.
Whether they helped start it, whether they helped influence it. She's going back and reclaiming all of these genres. From first dance music, house music. She literally won a Grammy for it. Now she's gonna do country. She's gonna win a Grammy for it. And then people are now predicting the next act. So there's Act 1, this is Act 2, Act 3,
which is
they're gonna predict it's gonna be rock music because Black people have a huge influence there too.
So they're rock and roll pioneers, obviously,
but they don't get the credit. I think that's the whole point. They're reclaiming.
This is
Beyonce's
so smart.
reclaiming.
She is literally a genius for this.
And I would have said it at some point if Lisa didn't beat me to it, but the fact still remains, the implication was still strong enough for all of us to come to that conclusion. Ultimately, what I'm trying to say is that Beyoncé has put enough into her craft to where it resulted in her continuing success and her dominance as the Queen Bee. She learned from the best of them. Michael, Janet, Prince, Tina, Diana, Whitney, Madonna took parts of what made them all great artists and entertainers and embodied them to become the generational performer that she is. And if Cowboy Carter is to prove anything, as if she has anything else more to prove, it would prove that she is still at the top of her game, head and shoulders above her contemporaries, and she is still that girl.